Happy Magical Monday. It's me, it's Crimson KB. I am back with another A Look Back. So, it's a weird way to put that. Anywho, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is coming this Friday. I thought, you know what would be absolutely marvelous on this, there we go, marvelous Monday, is let's take a look back at some of the games from FromSoftware. I'm never going to get used to saying that, ever. Let's take a look back at some of the games from FromSoftware, starting with the game that really got me into the, I guess, Souls games, as you can call them now. You know, I know Kingsfield happened way before this one, and I did play some of the previous Kingsfield, but I did not become a FromSoftware fan until this absolutely wonderful little game called Demon's Souls. This game was so impactful upon me as a gamer. This game was the reason that I bought a PS3. This was the reason, the number one reason. There were three. This was number one. So let's take a look back at the trailer for Demon's Souls on PlayStation 3, exclusively on PlayStation 3. There we go. Peggy 16. Someone had to say it. Now, that says Bandai Namco, because Bandai Namco was responsible for the publishing in the EU. But Atlas did it for the North America. Okay, so when I first saw this, you know, when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. I mean, like, it says it right there. The ratings were like off the freaking scales. I was like, what the crap is this? And so I was like, I mean, being, dragons and wizards and, knights and stuff like that, I was like, I was already on board, But, oh my god, I never experienced something like this. Ah, the Tower Knight. Ah. Only did I discover years later that he actually wasn't that. But, man, I love the operatic opening and whatnot. Boletaria. Ah, I love that name. There's the Maiden in Black with her waxy eyes. I'm a suck to deal with. Ooh, this opening area right here. Ooh, I was not prepared. I was not prepared. I really wasn't. This game just opened up a whole nother world to me. And it's like, oh, it's just like, it was like old school games, It was difficult, but then when you did it, it was rewarding. So it's like old school in the new school, and I loved it so much for that. Oh, that tower. Oh no, not that tower. Oh man, and this dragon right here. Okay, I have to laugh because when I saw that in the opening trailer when the dragon like opened his mouth, it sounded like he was singing, and I laughed. But oh my gosh. So yeah, June 25th, 2010, that was actually the EU and AU release. It came to North America in October of 2009. So that's when I actually got a PS3 for the first time. I didn't get it at launch. So you have to think about it. At this point, we were 3 years, almost 3 years when this came out in North America. We were almost 3 years into the PlayStation 3's life cycle. So, I mean, by this point, the console is pretty established, and it's got some very notable titles up until this point. But, like, nothing interested me. I was still, at the time, up until October of 2009, I was still clinging. To my PlayStation 2. I refused to let my PS2 go. Because I'm like, no, I'm not putting down a mortgage payment on a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360. I'm not doing it. I'm just like, I'm going to hang on to my PS2 because there's nothing on these consoles that I want. There's absolutely nothing. And then this happened. And then this happened. This was the game, like I said. This was the game that made me a fan of FromSoftware, and it did not prepare me, or I was not prepared. It prepared me kind of, but I was not prepared for the experience, the unforgettable experience that I was going to have with this entire franchise that spawned from this. So that was the debut trailer for the EU, so it's kind of the closest thing we can kind of get to a trailer. But now look at some of the gameplay of this, okay? So what you're going to see right here is kind of the, well, not kind of, but is the opening area to Demon Souls. This is kind of the introductory area, get you used to it, or in my case, lead you astray, let your guard down, kick you in the nads. So, you know, I mean, obviously I've been playing this since, 2009, so for almost 10 years I've on and off again played this game. But the thing is, when I first plugged this in, I was thinking this was going to be, Elder Scrolls-ish, Morrowind. I thought it was going to be like that. Oh, was I completely wrong. Now, the cool thing about it is, as you can see, this looks very similar to Dark Souls. Well, of course it does, because Dark Souls was the spiritual successor to this game. So, yeah, so, he's fat rolling, so I don't have endurance up or anything. There's the message system that you saw, appear in Dark Souls. So, many elements that you see pop up in Dark Souls. Just about every single one of them were influenced by this game. For example, targeting by clicking the right button, yeah. Or not right button, right stick, I should say. R2 being heavy attacks, circle being rolling. If you're an Xbox player, of course, that translates to the buttons over here. I am personally playing this, actually. But yeah, I was just like, I took my time, and I was just very slowly progressed through this area right here. Then, of course, L1 for guarding, and then at first I was like, what's he doing? when he was doing this, I was like, what's he doing? And then I saw this, and as you can see, this was something else they carried over. Now, in this game, in Demon Souls, they didn't have the Estus Flask, or, something like that. You healed by using grass. So, smoke weed every day, basically, Anyway, you healed by yourself by eating different forms of moonlight grass. Or crescent moon grass, I should say. That was your healing property. And so it was basically like the Final Fantasy equivalent of a potion. You could stock up on these. I don't remember if there was ever a place you could buy them, but they dropped off of enemies. So you had a stocking item that could heal you. Now, there were things in the Dark Souls games like Divine Blessing that would heal you and stuff like that. Of course, you learned miracles that did all that. So there was all of, that. But there was no constant item that refilled at what, Dark Souls would have at Bonfire. So there was no something like an Estus Flask. Now, this is right here. This Archstone, this is what would influence the bonfire. So you would find these. Usually you would only find these after, say, defeating a boss. Or at a point of entry. Usually. You would use these to either warp. Basically, these would basically be your warp points, basically. But they weren't. You didn't just sit at them and heal. No. And though the world did reset, but in order to reset the world, you had to actually leave. You couldn't just sit in a place and then suddenly the world reset. Not quite how it works. Of course, there were undead in the game, as you saw me fighting in the opening area, but they didn't have like hollowing and stuff like that. That was before all of that. Also, there was no pressing forward on the stick and hitting heavy for a lunging attack. Now, forward and R1 did kind of give you this move that kind of pushed as a shove back, so that was like the precursor to the kick that would happen in Dark Souls. But R2 with a straight sword was just, like this little hop skip, or, here, watch it again. This little hop skip and boom. There was, of course, a magic meter, I don't believe they did. I believe Dark Souls had it. Now, this was like your first challenge of the game, was this guy right here. This guy is kind of where you learn to fight enemies that were a little bit smarter, okay? Also, those that could take more hits. This is also where you kind of learn that, okay, blocking too much breaks my guard. So I kind of learned here, and this guy did kill me the first time I played through this. But I learned to stay out of his reach and wait for those openings. I learned, after watching him, that he had various times where he had delay on his attacks. And then I ran into another guy, and I thought, oh, what's this guy going to be doing? Okay, so same guy, right? Well, as you can see by this message, this kind of gives you a precursor of what you're going to run into. Again, this is the introductory level. So you press triangle, and you can two-hand it. Notice how he holds it kind of in a downward position? A lot of the weapons had various two-handed holding positions instead of just like right here over the shoulder like they did in Dark Souls. You might also notice that the shield is upside down on the back. But look at that. He just reaches behind him and boom. Instead of, yeah. So just little things like that. So this taught you to two-hand, okay? So you notice immediately he raised his guard. The reason he did that is if you hit him enough times with a heavy attack, it will stagger him. So again, you know, just telling you a button, but not telling you exactly what's going to happen. So it still kind of has that old school mentality of learn as you go. I know a lot of people don't really like a whole lot of tutorial in their games, you know, because a lot of people feel like, you know, games nowadays kind of, you know, explain every little bitty detail as you go. But I thought Demon Souls really had that nice old school approach with teaching you as you go just by playing the game. You know, but you know, it does teach you some controls because it is a very heavily, I understand, you know, it's different from the old days of a D-pad, 2 buttons, and start and select. Some people be like, you know, tutorials and games need to be completely gone. Well, I also understand the fact that we've come a long way from just a D-pad, start and select, and A and B. So, yes, a little bit of instruction is not a bad thing. So, people that are like, there don't need to be introductions, those people need to chill. So, this one just kind of, you know, as you go, it just bit by bit just drops little things like this does this, that does that. Now, what you do with it is entirely up to you. There's not something that pops up like, you know, watch out, this guy does this, so you better do that. Now, that's the kind of stuff I can't stand. I do like the approach of, here's what this button does, but what you do with it is up to you. And let's see if you learn from it. Now, you might recognize something like this from Dark Souls, the Fog Gates. This is where it first happened. I like how the transition was a little bit smoother than what you see in Dark Souls. So, obviously you saw me earlier, and I'm kind of giving a little bit of a spoiler here. Earlier you saw me do this, okay? Now that, of course, is the parry. The thing about Demon Souls is, and I was never good at parrying in Dark Souls, ever. But in Demon Souls, parrying is a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder. So, when I first got to this gate, I thought, oh, well, it's just gonna open me into another area, right? 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 No. This happened. What the heck? And so, when I walked in here, I was like, huh? I was like, oh, boss? Okay. And so I started hitting him, and I was like, I'm not doing much. And so he completely caught me off guard. And I had no idea what to do, and he just about diminished, as you saw right there. He just about one-shotted me. If you were probably any other class, he probably would have one-shotted you. Now, here's the deal. It is entirely possible to kill this boss right here, but it is challenging as heck. Like, it's very likely you won't. Now, I'm not saying, now if you're a first-time player, if you beat this on your first try, you are the man. You are the man, you are the boss. I have never accomplished this. Just because he always does something, or I miscalculate something and he kills me. Now, when he first killed me, I thought, there's no way I can get past that. I'm not doing enough damage. There's no way. This is impossible. And kind of right then and there, I was like, I don't want to play this. This is like beyond Ghosts and Goblins bull crap here, you know? And so I was sitting there kind of in disbelief, like, there's no way I can beat him. Because I didn't know how the experience system worked at the time. I didn't know how any of that worked. And then this happened. And I was like, huh? It just said you died. I didn't see underneath where it said the Nexus grabbed my soul. So I'm watching all this and I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm watching it.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel.
Let strength be granted so the world might be mended.
Yep.
So the world might be mended.
Yep. So I'm raised in this area and I'm shinier than I was. And I was like, huh? But I died.
This is the Nexus.
Oh.
It holds together the northern land of Boletaria.
Oh.
Thou canst not exit the Nexus, but each of the 5 archstones will connect it.
And I was like, oh. So I'm not dead? Because I thought it was going to be like, you know, something like Morrowind. You died, you know, you go back to your last save point or something like that. But no, it was this. You have died, and the Nexus has trapped your soul. You cannot escape the Nexus. However, by capturing demon souls, you may reclaim your physical body. That's when I realized that this is how the game works. It's not your traditional action-adventure, RPG kind of thing. You die, you go back, but you don't, like, pick up, like, how you would, like, in an Elder Scrolls game or any other action RPG where you, like, go back to a save point or go back to a point of, you know, a checkpoint. You start over, but you learn from each and every mistake you make. Like I said, that first boss you ran into right there, that tutorial boss, it is entirely possible to kill him. You can absolutely do it, but it's difficult. And when I looked back on it, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have spam rolled or spammed my roll so much and watched his attacks. Stuff like that. That is what laid the foundation for what became the series of Souls games that you see now. It all began here with Demon Souls. And to this day, out of all of the Souls games, even though, you know, there are some wonky things about it, and it definitely does show its age, I honestly believe with all my heart, Demon Souls still holds up to this day. You can still get this game digitally on PlayStation 3 if you go by a place that sells older games from previous generations. You can still find physical copies of this game. Personally, I think if you haven't given Demon Souls a try and you're looking forward to Sekiro and you kind of want to get some perspective of how far the Souls series has come, if you've never played Demon Souls, I honestly encourage everyone to at least give Demon Souls I don't know about a playthrough, because it's long. This is a long game. This is a seriously long game. Like, holy crap. Like, this game might be longer than Dark Souls. But, it's one of these games that you have to play it to appreciate the Souls series. You really do. Now, of course, Dark Souls followed this, and Dark Souls, in many ways, fixed a lot of the problems. But with Demon Souls, there was always something about Demon Souls that I ended up loving a lot more than Dark Souls. It might have been the environments. Part of it is definitely nostalgia. 3 of it just might have been the overall look. It definitely, to me, in my opinion, felt a lot more foreboding. And in many cases, it felt a lot darker than Dark Souls did. Even though Dark Souls has some very dark locations and atmosphere and stuff like that, Demon Souls always felt a lot more. It felt like there was more. It also felt like there were greater consequences to your actions, which is something else I was not prepared for. There was so much that just caught me off guard the first time I played this game. And it's still one of these games I can look back on and say, this was a legendary game. and I wouldn't mind seeing it again pop up, you know, maybe with like a remaster or something like that. So, and that's not, I'm not even talking about the world tendencies or the PvP aspect that this game had, which in my opinion, the Demon Souls PvP was very good. I wasn't a big fan of Dark Souls 1 or 2. Well, 2's PvP was okay, but I was not a big fan of Dark Souls 1 PvP. But I loved Demon Souls PvP, and the online servers actually lasted a long time. So that I'm not even getting into so many of the nitty-gritties of this game. There's so much I have not talked about, but I can say, after taking a look back on this, Demon Souls still holds up absolutely and remarkably well. So if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend you give this game a shot. I'll see you next time on a look back, as we look back at the spiritual successor to Demon Souls, Dark Souls. Have a shway day.